What is the relationship on the ground between this mission and what happened in Gaza Strip? I mean, the police that are staying at home, paid by the Commission meanwhile.
In terms of Gaza, yes, much of the early work of the mission was in Gaza, because Gaza was the state in making. It was the state that the West Bank was occupied territory. Last year, when Hamas seized Gaza, we have followed the instructions of Salam Fayyad, the Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority government, and we do not engage with the police in Gaza. There are 12,000 of the Palestinian civil police. They were instructed by Salam Fayyad to go home. They were paid, will be and have been paid, but they were not to support the Hamas security forces. The vast majority of those police officers are still at home being paid. They are subject to abuse, they are subject to intimidation, but they have remained loyal to the Fayyad government. I have no contact with Hamas forces under the Quartet EU instructions. Clearly in the future, one would hope that rapprochement, whatever happens, that those police officers will become part again of the Palestinian civil police. There is only one police chief of police, and that is Major General Atala.
What exactly, this is for Mr. Smith, the budget that you are looking for infrastructures and for what exactly, and if you have a sort of contingency plan for Gaza?
The funding that's been identified, requirement which is identified by the Palestinians in their strategy, is $134 million, which is for the prisons and the police, which they identify to develop the communications infrastructure, what I outlined early on. In terms of the figures for the mission, the current figure under the existing accreditation with the Israeli government is 33 internationals and then some nationals, which would take us to about 42. The increase will be 20 international staff, which will be mainly judicial experts, plus some support staff for the mission. As the mission gets bigger, I need to have more staff to support that. So that would take us to 70, which would be 53 internationals, 17. So that would be the next stage. In terms of Gaza, no, I currently no contingency plans for Gaza. I'm concentrating on what's in front of me, which is the West Bank, working with the Chief of Police there. Should Gaza situation change, then clearly that will need to be factored in. We will need to look at how we would develop that. A lot of our training early on was in Gaza. They were almost two different areas of operation, and we were trained. So we would re-engage back into in a sense what we'd previously been doing and continue that. In terms of ownership, yes, the importance of the training, which I think is very the European system, is we train the trainers. If I can take public order, we're currently nearly by the next couple of months we will have trained 800 Palestinian police, public order special police, who will have the capability to develop public order, counter demonstrations, riots, funding incidentally €2.5 million from the Canadians to give them the equipment, money from the European Commission to provide vehicles for these units. But the training of that has been to train initially 24 Palestinian trainers who had public order experience. We gave them a 2-week training course. The courses now that go on, I have a French CRS expert, Rudolf Moget, Captain Moget from the CRS. He oversees that training. So all we have on a 2-week training period is one European officer who is helping with tactics, techniques, and overseeing it. But the training is Palestinian. And ironically, this is, I suppose, something that you look at issues. We are quite happy with that, but the Palestinians would like us to provide more international trainers because they think it gives the course status. So in a sense, I'm working for them to take it, but they want more. But the training will be Palestinian. Everything is with ownership. All the work we're doing around communications, IT, is agreed with the Ministry of the Interior, with their experts, what specifics they want. It's in terms of difficulty, yes. I mean, the Palestinian civil police operate in occupied territory. They can operate in Area A, the Palestinian areas. They have difficulty in B and operate in Area C. That is changing, as you may be aware. The Israeli government has now allowed the Palestinians to operate in 20, planned 20 Area B stations. I was at one recently in Kirtult, where the European Union, we had funded the development of that station, the infrastructure, electrics. That's now operating. The Palestinian police can operate in vehicles, in uniform. They can carry weapons. Yes, they have to move through Israeli checkpoints, which is difficult. But long term, a political statement I only ever make is that if the Palestinian police are to attain their proper role, then they need to operate across the West Bank. So it's a 3-year plan. At the end of 3 years, I would hope they would have the capability of dealing with major organised crime, money laundering, drug trafficking, stolen vehicles, which means they need to move right across the West Bank and also cooperate with the Israelis. And I have to say, part of our work has been facilitating conferences and meetings between the Israeli police, who I have good contacts with and good friends, with the Palestinian police. They've had meetings, they talk, they exchange details about stolen vehicles, which they haven't done for years. So that's progressing. And the last part they need to develop is the ability to take over a counter-terrorism capacity. But in both major organised crime, they're a long way short of that. They're a long way short the capability and the capacity to deal with that. But yes, there are difficulties. But Jenin operation recently, they've operated much freer. The Israelis, the IDF, gave them much looser control. They were able to conduct searches in Area B. They pursued criminals. They did arrests. So the signs are there. If that continues on a political basis, that the police can develop into the force I think they could be, one of the best Arab forces in the Middle East.
The end of 2010 period, does that then coincide with the end of the mission, and when the 134 million funding requirement will be exhausted?
The current mandate of EUPOL COPPS is for 3 years, which will need renewing at the end of this year. The 2008-2010 coincides with the strategy that I developed last year. It's also the Palestinian Reform Development Programme. The PRDP is 2008-2010. Most of the current Fayyad government is 2008. So there's a synergy between all of it. In terms of the funding, the 130 million euro dollars that we're looking for police is really, when you get it, you can spend it. I mean, I'd have a job if I got it next week, I'd have a job spending it. But as we get it, we can spend it. So it's really up to the end of 2010, which would allow me to do everything that I think myself and the Palestinians have identified to develop the police and prison capability.
I have a couple of questions, please. To Mr. Smith, do you have an assessment of the security in Gaza, even though you don't deal with the local authorities? Because on one hand, you are not dealing with Hamas, but there are other reports suggesting that the security is better since Hamas take over the situation.
On the security in Gaza, I mean, I think the first point to emphasise is that you have if I use a quasi-police, but you have no judiciary there, so you have no courts. In effect, what I know from contacts there is your security is very basic. It's very much, in your face. It's very much upfront confrontational. And clearly, the security situation is probably better because part of the cause of the previous security difficulties was by Hamas. So now Hamas have taken power. They're not creating difficulties themselves. So you will see on the surface a different situation. But what I don't think you see is what we or the international community would regard as democratic, community-based policing. What you see is different to that. And I think this is the long-term aim, is to get, if we develop the police in the West Bank, that in time, given political change, would be a model for development in Gaza. But they have quite a number of interesting schemes. I understand they use the police vehicles as taxis. Recently they had a parade. They had some mounted police, which I thought was rather nice, on horses. But it's not what I would call a police system. It's not a police structure that we would accept or we would recognise.